Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. Peyton Manning earlier today heading off the bus and onto the field along with the rest of his all-time Colts. Their opponent tonight is Patrick Mahomes and the all-time Kansas City Chiefs. And this is exactly where Peyton Manning seemed to struggle the most in his NFL career. Manning was a 5-time MVP and had the most passing yards in history, but was just 9-10 in his Colts playoff career and was one and done 7 times with the Colts. He'll hope to avoid a one-and-done season here as they begin the playoffs with a matchup against the Chiefs. Kansas City at Indianapolis. The AFC Wildcard rounds coming up next with Charge Dude 95.
Kansas City, they know how to get loud. Tony Gonzalez bringing them to their feet with a touchdown jam. Like Derek Thomas, they'll always please the crowd. These are the Chiefs. The Colts wear the crown in the capital city. From Marshall to Manning, offense ruled the day. It's about legacy in Indianapolis. These are the Colts.
The AFC Wild Card Playoffs brings us to a chilly Indianapolis for the all-time rosters franchise where the Chiefs visit the Colts. It should be a fantastic game between two AFC powers, the division champion Colts and the Chiefs, who snuck in as a wild card club, winning the tiebreaker in the season finale, knocking out the Broncos and the Titans Oilers to get in. Former 2-time NFL MVP Patrick Mahomes is the first on the field, and Hank Cinnamon, the league leader in touchdown passes, is at it yet again for the Chiefs.
Yeah, when Patrick Mahomes came into the National Football League, a lot of people weren't expecting him to do anything because they already had a successful quarterback and established as Alex Smith, but no one really expected that he was going to come onto the scenes as explosive as he was in 2018.
Same story for Tyreek Hill, as one of the 2 all-time Chiefs starting receivers, joining Otis Taylor. Jamal Charles in the middle of this offense with Tony Richardson, and the all-time yard-per-game tight end leader in NFL history, Travis Kelce, the ones to watch for the Kansas City offense, ranked 4th in points this season. Mahomes goes deep on the first play of the game, and Dwayne Bowe's got it. The officials discuss and agree he was inbounds for the catch.
Dwayne Bowe was one of those guys who was extremely successful with the Chiefs during the early 2000s to the late 2010s. And then when he went to the Cleveland Browns, it was one of those situations where it didn't mesh very well, and he got a lot of money per catch. Like, he had like 8 catches that season.
Meanwhile, we've got Ted Hendricks down on the field. This is the Hall of Famer who won a Super Bowl with the Raiders. Before then, the Mad Stork was a legend in the early 70s with the Colts. Our first injury of the game is part of an already depleted Colts defense. Third play of this drive, and Mahomes launches this one out of bounds. The all-time Colts come into the game ranked 7th in scoring defense this season. Bobby Boyd, Gino Marchetti, Bob Sanders, Art Donovan, and former NFL tackle leader out of South Carolina State, the maniac Shaquille Leonard, rounds out the defense for the all-time Colts. Indianapolis-Baltimore comes in division champions at 10-6 overall this year. Draw on a 3rd down, and Holmes is immediately swarmed by that Colts defense.
Yeah, the Chiefs must have thought they were blessed by a priest right there, but in all actuality, it was just a mere mortal and didn't get very much on that play.
Strange considering how good that offensive line is, and they got beaten badly out of the trenches on that play. Onto the field, 5-time NFL MVP, the man who controlled the 2000s, the Sheriff Peyton Manning, the league leader in passing yards, 22 touchdowns and 9 picks on 61% completions. It is Mahomes, Manning, and Brady who are the Pro Bowl quarterbacks for the upcoming all-time roster Pro Bowl in Honolulu. Peyton Manning has been brilliant this year. Four-man chief rush. Manning guns it over the middle to Barry, who gets decked but has a first down.
When Peyton Manning came onto the scene in the NFL, everyone knew that this guy was going to be some sort of a golden boy, especially with how he played at Tennessee. He has so many accolades in the National Football League that you could probably put him on a Mount Rushmore if you wanted to.
Number 32.
Well, not everyone believed that he would be a golden boy. The Chargers in 1998 were very happy to select Ryan Leaf with the second overall pick, and he turned into a complete disaster.
Well, at least that was a situation where they didn't have to choose between the two because they actually had the second overall pick. The selection, the obvious selection, even in hindsight, is Peyton Manning.
He joins Marvin Harrison and Raymond Berry, receiver for the all-time Colts, John Mackey at tight end, and Alan Amici joins the Hall of Famer from Penn State, number 24, Lenny Moore. Glad you're with us. AFC Wildcard game, Nick Rice and Hank Cinnamon on hand, Danny DeBock in our halftime studios. What should be a great game between two AFC powers, winner to the divisional round. Manning back on second down, completes the slant to one of the best tight ends of all time. First down, John Mackey.
Wide open over the middle. The Chiefs seem to have a lot of trouble covering the middle of the field, and that's a situation where Peyton Manning's going to pick you apart. He was the field general in the National Football League. He made that popular.
Manning back on a first down. He's looking and launches into the end zone. And that pass is nearly picked off by Deron Cherry. And Cherry joins Willie Lanier, Bobby Bell, Johnny Robinson, and Derek Thomas for the third best total defense in the all-time rosters franchise. Plenty of Hall of Fame talent for this defense.
Yeah, it's one of those crews where a lot of these guys were extremely successful in the 60s and 70s. A lot of Hall of Famers on that Chiefs defense.
They've been led on the season by Willie Lanier until Week 16 when, Hank, you were there in Kansas City when Lanier suffered a season-ending broken collarbone injury. A comeback pattern on the sideline to Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison, and he's got it for the first down.
An excellent button hook play by Marvin Harrison, and as a defense, that's almost impossible to defend. I don't know how you can be able to follow Marvin Harrison like that and backtrack on the ball.
In cut to Barry, and he is hammered, and Barry goes down. What appears to be a knee injury. We already saw Barry go down earlier in the season to a herniated disc, and he'll be dearly missed if he can't return for the Colts. 3 minutes left in the opening quarter. Indianapolis-Baltimore led by Peyton Manning on a brilliant opening drive. The Sheriff comes into the game, the league leader in passing with over 4,000 passing yards. Meanwhile, Lenny Moore has rarely been utilized this season and gains only a yard on the ground.
It's amazing how even though Peyton Manning was such a successful passer, he did have one Hall of Fame running back in Edgerrin James, and he did play with Marshall Faulk, so he wasn't just passing the ball the whole time.
That's right. Manning guns it into the end zone for Wayne. He may not be a Hall of Famer, but Hank, Reggie Wayne, a pretty good player too.
Yeah, he sets up stately Wayne Manor right there in the end zone, going over the middle, uncovered completely.
And Wayne flourished with Peyton Manning in the 2000s. He had 8 1,000-yard receiving seasons and led the league in receiving in 2007.
It's one of those situations where Peyton Manning did have a lot of talent around him, more than many of the other guys during the early 2000s.
Dante Hall, the human joystick, signed after the injury to Willie Lanier, brings it back to the 19 where Shinnick makes the tackle. Well, in week 10 of the season, the Colts humiliated Jacksonville but suffered a big loss in the process. Their lead safety, Rick Volk, suffered a season-ending fractured shoulder blade injury in the victory. He is one of 2 defensive players out for the game today, joining the likes of Mike Curtis. He tore his tricep in week 14 when the Colts knocked out Baltimore. And we just, from word on the sideline, have a 3rd season-ending injury for the Colts as Ted Hendricks, who was on the second play of the game going down with what wound up being a broken collarbone, he is out. And for the Colts, they're running out of bodies, especially in the back 7. And Patrick Mahomes hopes to take advantage of the depleted defense. Incomplete, 3rd down coming up.
Well, it doesn't seem to matter, and I hope I'm not jinxing the Colts here, but they've been shutting down the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes so far.
Chiefs missed their last 3rd down. We'll see if they can shut them out here. Mahomes launches a deep ball to Tyreek Hill, who makes the catch, lost it on a fumble, and Bethea scoops it up and is out of bounds at the 27. Hill took a huge hit, Hank, and the ball came out.
Yeah, even if you're saying that this is an incomplete pass, it would still be 4th down. I don't know if they're going to review that, but very poor situation for the Chiefs to be in, and an excellent opportunity for the Colts to put more points on the board.
That red-hot offense just went the length of the field on their last drive, capped off by Reggie Wayne, who's in the block on the quick pass to Lenny Moore, gain of 5 on the play.
And one of the real great situations that we found ourselves in today is showing how Peyton Manning does his offense, calling the signals at the line, moving guys around, shouting at defenders. He did it all.
2nd and 5. Manning launches it into traffic, and Flowers nearly picked him off. Incomplete.
Yeah, that was a really bad pass by Peyton Manning. It's one of those balls that you might just want to chuck deep or to the sidelines because you were out of the pocket so that you don't get an interception.
3rd down, deep over the middle to Harrison, who moves the chains for the Colts. Now, you mentioned, Hank, earlier about Peyton Manning, and he could just about do it all. The problem in his Colts career was he couldn't quite put it together in the playoffs until 2006, when he ran the table as a wild card, knocking out teams like the Patriots and the Ravens before defeating the Bears in Miami to win Super Bowl 41. We played a quarter from Indianapolis, and the Colts lead the Chiefs 7-0. We'll be back for the 2nd quarter of the AFC Wildcard round right after this. Welcome back. Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon at Lucas Oil Stadium. Danny DeBock for our halftime coverage. So Peyton Manning began that Super Bowl run in 2006 by crushing the Chiefs in this building. It was one of the 5 times the Chiefs and the Colts have met all time in the playoffs. That one the most significant, as the Colts wound up winning the title.
Well, you also have to look into the fact that they went to Baltimore, who at the time was the 2nd seed, and they had a very good record, and they did have Steve McNair themselves. And then they hosted a game against the Patriots in which they came back in one of the greatest playoff comebacks we've ever seen in an AFC championship game. Finally, Peyton Manning would take that monkey off of his back, beating Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, which he failed to do for most of his career in the playoffs, and then beat the Bears in the Super Bowl.
Really, it was an interesting playoff run considering how many times in the years before that they were the better seed with more talent, more Hall of Famers, and would lose in the playoffs. Deep ball to Raymond Berry, 1st and goal Colts.
Amazing catch there by Raymond Berry on that go route, just going deep, being the biggest man out there, catching and going along the sidelines. But back to what you were saying earlier, yeah, I mean, it was amazing. They would go 13-3, 14-2, lose to Miami in the 1st round. It was just head scratching.
One of those head scratchers was losing by 44 to the Jets a couple years before that Super Bowl title. Peyton Manning back in the end zone. Touchdown to Raymond Berry.
The Chiefs need to man up on defense. They need to get more powerful. They can't get bummed off the line like that. You can't get beat by these receivers and expect to be successful on defense.
Well, hard to bump and run anyone, especially Raymond Berry on that Colts roster. Already 70 yards in the first half. These two teams met in this building back in Week 5, and Hank, the Chiefs beat these Colts in that first game 38-7. Mahomes threw for 211 yards and 3 touchdowns and was player of the game. In fact, was the AFC Offensive Player of the Week. And you transition a couple months later, and it's amazing what can happen when two teams like that meet again. Tyreek Hill sheds a tackle. Big return for Hill. He's got one to beat. That's Jerry Logan, who runs him out of bounds at the 30. Great return from the speedster, Tyreek Hill.
That was a very opportune situation the Chiefs put themselves in. Tyreek Hill is like lightning. The Colts are lucky he didn't score. But back to what you were saying earlier, sometimes a team will just get flabbergasted during the season early in the year, and then they'll play the same team during the playoffs and they'll win.
Tyreek Hill did a whole lot of winning in his day, and he dominated that series. He fumbles the ball in the first quarter, Hank, and Tyreek Hill does it all himself on that drive. The big return and the 30-yard touchdown.
Sometimes all you need is redemption. Sometimes you just got to make a spark and continue going, and then you can get the momentum forward.
Tyreek Hill with 8 touchdown catches in 14 games this season and is already in the end zone as one of the great home run threats in football. And with 6:42 remaining in the half, our score is 14-7 Colts.
Like I was saying earlier, if the Colts want to continue this trend of scoring, you got to continue to go to the middle of the field. Peyton Manning's got to continue to confuse the Chiefs, which he's been succeeding at recently.
First down, they'll go run with Lenny Moore, who gets decleated by Hall of Famer Bobby Bell. 6-time first-team All-Pro and a Super Bowl champion from the University of Minnesota. They may be down Willie Lanier, but guys like Bobby Bell and Buck Buchanan from the Hank Stram Chiefs of the 60s are absolutely good players to fill the shoes of the injured Lanier. And Manning is sacked by Deron Cherry here, 3rd and 19 coming up.
That was a wild safety blitz there because he had the tight end wide open. I don't know if you saw it, but it looks like he came right into his face too early for that.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but Peyton Manning didn't either until it was too little too late. Blitz is coming. Manning guns it to Marvin Harrison. Wrapped up by Thomas, and the Chiefs force the 3-and-out.
One of the ways you beat Peyton Manning in the Colts is by getting in his head, confusing him, and getting him into long-distance situations. That's how you'll beat almost any quarterback. But the Chiefs did it very successfully right there.
Return on the play.
Well, very few remember Tyreek Hill early in his career was a home run threat at kick and punt returner and has been their lead returner today despite the presence of Dante Hall. Jamal Charles wrapped up at the line, the tackle from Art Donovan.
Tyreek Hill is known as the Cheetah, or I believe he's known as the Cheetah, for a reason. The guy is fast, he's difficult to cover, and he's got really good ball skills.
He's one of the 3 wide out there for the Chiefs, but they go to the tight end Travis Kelce, somewhere Taylor Swift is celebrating after his first catch of the game.
Yeah, I think I saw her at the game. I don't know. Maybe the camera will pan to her at some point.
He's lined up on the right on a 3rd and 5. Mahomes with time, back to the deep ball to Hill, and this time Bethea had it well covered, incomplete.
It's very hard to stay stride for stride with Tyreek Hill, but that pass was a little bit underthrown. Would have liked to have seen it be thrown a little bit deeper so that Tyreek Hill could use his speed.
Hilton with a return of 3 on this play. Tamba Hali with the tackle. And we've got the 2007 Defensive Player of the Year down and Bob Sanders after that. We'll have an injury update on Sanders in just a moment. Raymond Berry has returned after a chest contusion in the first quarter of the game, so he joins Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison for one of the best receiving corps for the all-time rosters franchise. A big reason why Manning is the league leader in passing this season. First down, Manning with plenty of time here. He's going to buy more time and launches it. Coming back is Wayne, but that pass is tipped away.
Yeah, you need to have a guy coming back faster than that, because if everyone's going deep and Peyton Manning's got all the time in the world, it's not like he's going to use his legs. Have you seen him run? He's a statue.
Yeah, Peyton Manning, he was quite the athlete. 6'5", 230 pounds. I mean, he was given all of this, size. Tamba Hali injured for the Chiefs. But, Arch Manning's got some wheels, and Archie Manning of the Saints was actually not a bad athlete. Peyton got none of those genetics.
No, that's why all the runs he had for touchdowns especially were one of those where, the camera got completely fooled.
That's right, like the game against Dallas when he was a Bronco, a 3-and-out for the offense here.
Number 18 has his pass.
Yeah, I think there was another one where he was playing against the Raiders or playing against the 49ers where he had a pretty nice run himself. But, no, he did not use his legs very often.
This guy used his legs quite a bit, Tyreek Hill. He sheds a tackle at the 40 and brings it back to the 42. Tyreek Hill was unguardable with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and then after 2021, Andy Reid and the Chiefs traded him away to Miami, where he had another fabulous couple seasons with the Dolphins, but wasn't quite the same as when he donned the Chiefs uniform. Kelsey over the middle with a gain of 28.
That was a real head scratcher. I remember that offseason. He said something along the lines of, Tua is more accurate or better than Patrick Mahomes is, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, you don't have to, compliment your quarterback while at the same time bashing the best quarterback in the league.
Patrick Mahomes has been one of the best quarterbacks of the all-time roster franchise, and his wheels are another reason why. Tony Dungy, greatest coach in Colts history, calls the team's first timeout in hopes of getting the ball back with time left before the break. Toss, Charles in trouble and gets hammered by Bethea. Timeout Colts.
Colts are very wise here to be using these timeouts. Hopefully it doesn't trip them up, but they got the 2-minute warning if they need it.
Mahomes with time, fires in the end zone, knocked away by Logan. And the Colts, despite these many injuries in the secondary, Rick Volk, Ted Hendricks, Mike Curtis, all out for the remainder of the game. They have still bent but not broken in this first half. Jan Stenerud hits the field goal, and we're down to 4. The Chiefs have trimmed the lead to 14-10.
Yeah, very lucky by the Colts there after giving away a few big plays to get into their own territory from the Chiefs. But, Peyton Manning was good himself inside 2 minutes. Let's see what the field general has to work with. Peyton
Manning, he's third on the all-time career passing list, trailing only Drew Brees and Tom Brady. First and 10, empty formation for Manning and the Colts with a bit under 2 minutes and a timeout. Chiefs rush 4. Manning gets rid of it to Marvin Harrison. Cherry the stop and a gain of 5.
And you're going to do the no huddle, which Peyton Manning was a genius at. He made the no huddle offense what it is today.
Not quite a home run thrower. He tries at that time to Berry, and the pass is incomplete. It was amazing. You mentioned the running back talent and all the surrounding talent he had on offense, but really, Peyton Manning did a lot with little, considering rarely did the Colts have any respectable defenses throughout his many years playing with the Colts. and he still managed to be one of the best ever at his position. Manning guns it to Reggie Wayne, who's out of bounds, gain of 11 and a first down.
And that was the one thing that Tom Brady always had that Peyton Manning didn't. Tom Brady always had the defense. Peyton Manning always had the offense, but Tom Brady didn't always have an offense. He had that really good super team of 2007, but he never really got afloat with any better wide receivers, and seemed to be winning Super Bowls with average guys at receiver like Deion Branch and Troy Brown and David Patton.
Yeah, and once Tony Dungy was gone, Manning really struggled to do much in the playoffs with Jim Caldwell at coach and Anthony Gonzalez and some of the other guys he had at receiver when Harrison retired and Clark. Austin Collie. That's right. Third down, Manning dances, throws. He's got a man out there, but Mackey was out of bounds.
Yeah, I'd like to see a replay on that, but it didn't seem too favorable for them.
Pat McAfee, greatest punter in Colts history, and in fact made the Pro Bowl roster for the all-time roster franchise in the AFC. Two-time Pro Bowler from West Virginia, sends one to the sideline, and it bounces out of bounds at the 2. A fabulous punt from McAfee.
Nick, that is what they called the coffin kick, the coffin punt. We don't really see that very often. Nowadays, punters are punting the ball in the middle of the field and kind of just hoping they get a favorable bounce.
Mahomes hit as he throws out of the end zone, and he's picked off by Antoine Bethea. Patrick Mahomes was probably trying to avoid a safety, but that result is even worse.
Yeah, pressure in his face, gets rid of it late, not really able to go through the follow-through. 2 points versus possible 3 or a touchdown, you never know.
Mackey on the Texas route, and the Chiefs perplexingly called timeout here. And the Colts have 27 seconds left and a first down. Chiefs bring a 4-man rush. Manning has plenty of time, looks and throws towards the end zone to Harrison, and he's wrapped up inches away from the end zone.
They got to go fast here because, did he step out of bounds?
Looked like he might have.
He might have. I don't know if the refs noticed that, or even that they know that could be a rule. But they got to go quickly, or they called a timeout.
Yeah, they called a timeout. There is no challenge. So Manning, who's sitting on 216 yards today, 2 touchdowns, is going to try and find another. Manning throws, and that is tipped away. We look at the red zone numbers today for the Colts, who are the second best red zone offense in the whole league this season.
This is a situation you can't take a sack. Taking a sack is probably the worst thing you could do, and that might have just been a time killer right there. Yeah, you definitely cannot take a sack here. I don't know if they're going to throw it out of the end zone again.
A 3rd and goal, Manning will throw it. He's looking, plenty of time, tosses in the end zone, and Thomas is there for the pick. And how about scoring 0 on a drive that began in field goal range?
Now that's why the Kansas City Chiefs called a timeout, because they knew that they were going to get the ball back.
That is thinking smarter, not harder, or maybe just absolutely lucky that Manning makes a throw like that. Charles closes the half with a 2-yard loss, but they will gladly take it. Colts were in position to jump away with a huge lead. The interception keeps us at a 1-score game. Danny DeBock is in our halftime studios. What do you got for us, Danny?
This is the Verizon Game Recap. Peyton Manning leading the way for the Indianapolis Colts against the all-time Kansas City Chiefs. Tyreek Hill makes a leaping grab over Antoine Bethea. Bob Sanders forces the fumble. Bethea comes away with the fumble recovery for Indianapolis. On the ensuing drive, Manning cranked up a deep pass that found Raymond Berry all the way down to the 1-yard line. Berry capped off the drive with a touchdown. Peyton Manning 216 yards in the first half, including 2 touchdowns. Emmett Thomas did have that late interception for the Chiefs. Kansas City, Tyreek Hill, the long touchdown reception. lone touchdown for the Chiefs. That's the story at halftime. Let's head back to Nick Rice and Hank Cinnamon.
It's the AFC Wildcard game in Indy. Colts lead 14-10. Hank, what are your thoughts of what we've seen in the first half tonight?
I think we've seen a lot of good passing from these two Pro Bowl quarterbacks, but, not really doing much in the rushing category. You can see -1 and 7. Not so good for the running backs.
Hilton will bring it out of the end zone to begin the second half tonight. And he is buried by Tyrann Mathieu at the 19. The Colts have been led in rushing by Edgerrin James, who has 2 carries for 13 yards. Meanwhile, their lead running back, Hall of Famer Lenny Moore, who's flanking Manning now, 4 carries for -6 yards. They'd be better off just spiking the football on those running plays. On first down, they'll go to the air. Manning, with plenty of time, is going to air it out again, and Johnny Robinson was all over it, incomplete.
And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they've been running outside run plays with Lenny Moore, and he's just been getting stopped.
Yeah, the Colts, ranked 29th in rushing, weren't necessarily this dominant run game, but they're a whole lot better than what we've seen in the first half. And on second down, they may just be abandoning the run by this point, and Manning tosses one right into the hand of Derek Johnson.
That interception at the 1-yard line in the end zone is just a killer for a team, because you could be going up by 7 and not having to worry about as much, but now you just got to make up points.
Yeah, even a field goal would have been a momentum boost there. Peyton Manning off his back foot. What a throw to Marvin Harrison for the first down.
And there goes Old Reliable on that one. It looked like kind of a go route to the right side, and Peyton Manning's just throwing off his back foot. Not a very good pass, but it was a reception nonetheless, and it gets the first down.
Now, Peyton Manning has come out 18 of 30 for 245 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception in a brilliant game today. And while Lenny Moore and Edgerrin James have had nightmare games, Peyton Manning is almost doing it all himself until the interception.
Peyton Manning's been getting really lucky with some of these dropped interceptions by the Chiefs. Manning
completes it to John Mackey, and Hali makes the stop at the 45. Colts today, they are 4 for 8 on third down and come into the game a rough 36% in the league on third down, bottom 11 in football. Toss to Edgerrin James, and Emmett Thomas brings him down for a loss again.
Yeah, it's not been very pretty for the running backs, especially with the Colts, who just lost rushing yards in their overall total. Maybe it's going to be the team who can run the ball the best, which is going to win.
Pat McAfee couldn't quite cough from the corner at that time. And the all-time Chiefs will begin at their own 20-yard line. They've got to be encouraged. Really, the only highlights of the day for this offense is the one deep ball to Tyreek Hill, and that's about it. Jamal Charles, who's struggled to get anything going, is buried by Davis. Charles tonight with 5 carries for -3 yards.
And that's just really surprising to me, because Jamal Charles, in his time with the Kansas City Chiefs, was a perennial Pro Bowler. Even during the Chiefs' worst season in 2012, he was still putting up a 1,000-yard season.
I believe he made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. Have you ever seen – I've never seen something like that happen. Like, not even with, like, Barry Sanders was he making Pro Bowls when his team was only winning 2 games.
Gino Marchetti made a whole lot of Pro Bowls in his day. In fact, 11 of them, which is tied for the team lead with Peyton Manning. Marchetti in for the sack. He had 13 and a half during the regular season and made the all-time roster Pro Bowl and delivers the stop to force the punts. Hilton on the return, and down he goes. Wrapped up by Eric Berry at the 43. Glad you're with us. It's the AFC Wildcard game. Colts with a win would take on the Raiders in the next round. The Chiefs with a victory, their next round opponent would be none other than the Steel Curtain in Pittsburgh, the first seed all-time Steelers.
False start, offense, first down.
The first penalty of the day for the Colts, and it's on the greatest offensive lineman in franchise history, left tackle Jim Parker. First and 15 for the Sheriff and this Colts offense. Manning takes one out of the shotgun set. It seems as though almost every pass from Manning is about 50 yards downfield, and somehow it's another deep ball that's dropped by a Chiefs defender.
I think the Colts are playing four verticals here, and they shouldn't be because they've got some very talented receivers who can play the short game.
Unfortunately, they haven't had a running back do much of anything tonight, making them one-dimensional. They'll run it straight ahead to Moore, who bounces it outside and gains 3 on the play.
That's got to be his best gain of the whole game. You would think this team could line up in a formation that would mimic a four verticals and just do a draw play to one of these guys.
Well, they've got Edgerrin James in there right now, not half bad as a running back, 2-time league leader in rushing to begin his career with the Colts, but they'll throw it again. Check down to Mackey, upended to the 46 by the Chiefs' Justin Houston.
And a Hall of Famer too, which it always surprised me when they made Edgerrin James a Hall of Famer because I was like, really? And then when I looked at his stats, I was like, okay.
That punt into the end zone. So Edgerrin James is, to me, right in that list of, yes, Hall of Famer, but probably the lowest end Hall of Famer. Because he was really good for about maybe 4 or 5 years, and then he was basically a bench warmer with the Cardinals when they made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he was one of those guys who was extremely successful with Peyton Manning, and then he became a free agent, and then the moment he left, they won a Super Bowl with Joseph Adai.
Yeah, that's right. It is probably the strangest playoff run we've seen in a while. Chiefs, meanwhile, not, I'd say even more strange considering how good they were in the regular season on offense. And for Jamal Charles, he gets the call and picks up the opening third down conversion of the game. That's got to feel pretty good, gaining 3 yards rushing on that play.
And that's their first third down conversion of the entire game. And you got it from your running back, so that's good.
Yeah. Mahomes gains a couple. Art Donovan with the tackle.
I think Patrick Mahomes is now the leading rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs today.
Larry Johnson to try and switch things up. He'll get the call. Sheds a tackle and is chased down on a gain of a yard. Larry Johnson ran for over 1,700 yards in 2005 and 2006, and then suffered a critical injury against the Chargers and was never the same. Priest Holmes is in at running back now. On third down, the pass is complete to Bo for a first down. Those are the numbers of Mahomes, and we'll have more from Indy right after this. It's the fourth quarter coming up next in Indianapolis. The AFC wild card comes down to this. Welcome back. Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon, Danny DeBock from Indianapolis. All-time Colts lead 14-10. In their platoon of running backs, Jamal Charles is back into the game, and he's in the block for Patrick, who fires to his tight end, Travis Kelce, a gain of 1 on the play.
I was going to say earlier about Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson. Priest Holmes was a beast from like 2002 to 2004, and you're thinking, man, they can't get another guy who's as good. And then in the next 2 years, they had Larry Johnson, be just as much of a beast, just where Priest Holmes left off. It was just an amazing 5 years.
And then literally right after that, they take Jamal Charles in the 3rd round in 2008. Yes, he wasn't quite as good, but he was very durable and productive, and then explodes onto the scene once they pick up Alex Smith in the 2010s. So they're running backs, none of them Hall of Famers, but they were all really good. Coming in at 4th string for the all-time Chiefs at running back as Gerald Wilson delivers his Pat McAfee impression with a coffin corner is Christian Okoye. Hank, if you remember him, a star out of the late 80s and 90s for KC.
Yeah, he was referred to as the Nigerian Nightmare, and the reason why was because you did not want to face Christian Okoye in the open field. It was like getting hit by a Mack truck.
Derek Johnson, maybe not quite a Mack truck, but he does have the most tackles in Chiefs history with over 1,100. Johnson with his 65th tackle of the all-time roster franchise, including the playoffs. 6:33 left in the ball game. Manning, another what could have been a dropped interception. Flowers didn't even look for the football.
Yeah, Peyton Manning has been really, really lucky in this game with these passes because the Chiefs could have like 4 or 5 more interceptions than they already do.
And I got to say, Hank, this might be as realistic of a Manning playoff performance as we've seen. I mean, he had lost 13 times in the postseason, and some of them were embarrassing losses to the Jets, the Patriots, and others. So it really was strange how bad he was in some of those playoff games.
What team was he the worst against, though?
I'm just thinking that Jets game, 44-0. I think it was 04, 03.
He was the worst against the Chargers.
Oh, that's right. That's right. How did I not know that? Yeah, I was a super fan for the Chargers when they knocked them out in the Wildcard in San Diego. Manning had a 4-interception first half against the Chargers, and they only lost that game in San Diego because Vinatieri missed a 20-yard field goal. I mean, the Chargers had their number.
That was the Darren Sproles game. And if you remember in 2005 when the Colts had the number 1 seed, who was the first team they lost to that year?
That's right. Chargers. Meanwhile, Jamal Charles breaks through, and Charles is in for the touchdown.
You see, all they needed was a screen pass. They couldn't run the ball all game, so why don't we try to put Jamal Charles, pretending he's blocking, put the offensive line in front of him, toss a screen pass to him, and let him go.
Jamal Charles had a whole lot of touchdown catches during 2013 when he led the whole league in total touchdowns and finished 3rd for the Offensive Player of the Year award. Fabulous football player and scores a touchdown on his first catch of the game. It's in fact his first touchdown catch of the whole season, and it gives Kansas City the lead with 5:35 to go. Chiefs would play the Steelers in the divisional round with a win tonight. Hilton brings it back to the 17.
You look at it and you're like, hey, I had 48 yards per reception. That's really good. And then you're like, oh, I only caught 1 pass. For a touchdown, that's good.
I'd say so. We have yet to hear of much out of Edgerrin James since he had the nice run of the opening drive of the game. He's in the block. In cut to Marvin Harrison. We've heard a lot of that guy. 110 yards in tonight's game.
Marvin Harrison was a beast. And there is a reason why his son is so good. It's because his dad is a Hall of Famer, Marvin Harrison.
In 2002, he caught 143 passes, which was an NFL record. It is 3rd all-time right now in NFL history. Marvin Harrison with another catch. The Chiefs are having a hard time staying in front of him. First down.
Well, that play was all set up by T.Y. Hilton because Peyton Manning threw between those 2 guys, and, T.Y. Hilton just stood there and made a nice block as Marvin Harrison just kept going.
Inside run, Edgerrin James hit by Matthew and buried by Derek Johnson, his 7th tackle of the day. He has filled the shoes admirably of Willie Lanier as Derek Johnson, who played for about a decade for the Chiefs, 4-time Pro Bowler out of Texas. 3.5 minutes left. Colts desperate to put something together. They've done next to nothing since the interception to close the first half. Manning lobs it to Dallas Clark, and he's got it. Down to the 19.
Dallas Clark from Tight End University, the University of Iowa. Go Hawkeyes.
Another deep ball to this guy. He averaged in the regular season, did Dallas Clark, 31 yards a catch. Yes, he only had 5 catches, but his best Jamal Charles impression, he just flies down the field and sets up a first down of the red zone. Manning stands in and gets rid of it to Raymond Berry for the gain of 4.
That pass was thrown a tad bit late. Would have liked to seen it be thrown earlier over the middle because he definitely could have turned up the field and got in more yards.
Colts missed their last red zone trip and are 2 for 3 today inside of the Chiefs' 20. Against the blitz, Manning guns it. His 40th pass of the day, that one to Berry, and the Chiefs called timeout. Colts are 4 for 11, but they have missed their last 3 third down attempts. False start of the offense.
False start, offense, still third down.
Well, that might have saved them a little bit because they probably would have ran the ball and they probably would have gotten stopped in the backfield. So maybe a for sure passing play would have helped them out more.
Peyton Manning with his 5th 300-yard game of the season. Really a dominant performance for the Sheriff here in the wild card round. Unfortunately, they've really struggled to capitalize on these drives. Manning's going to hurdle and run right back into the arms of the Chiefs. Boy, I haven't seen that from Manning in a long time. And Vinatieri's in to salvage the drive, and he does. We're tied at 17.
And that is what that interception at the 1-yard line did to you. Now, instead of being up by 3 points, you're tied, and the guy staring at you from the other side is Patrick Mahomes.
One of the great comeback quarterbacks in NFL history, Patrick Mahomes, with a chance to win it for the Chiefs. 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning as well for this offense. He lost it on a Dwight Freeney strip sack, recovered by Jim Trier.
Very lucky to have recovered that because if you didn't, then it might have been over.
Freeney part of a 4-man Colts rush, and that pass is nearly picked off by Davis.
Yeah, you got to intercept that. I mean, I know that this game has been a bunch of dropped interceptions here and there, but when you have the ability to end a team, you just got to take advantage.
Meanwhile, the Chiefs aren't even going to throw it. Timeout after the run from Larry Johnson. And Wilson is in the punt. That is not anywhere near the drive many expected from Mahomes and Kansas City. Hilton, buried by E.J. Holub at the 43.
Maybe they're thinking, hey, we can trust our defense, but this isn't one of those situations where you're like, oh, we can let them kick a field goal. Because a field goal is going to win this game if you have that mentality.
First down, Colts line up at their own 43, 1:44 to go, and the Sheriff having the ball with 2 timeouts. Manning guns it. He's got a man out there, but Flowers comes in to tip it away from Marvin Harrison.
You don't need to get that many yards right now. You need to slow play this thing, get 4 or 5 yards per attempt, milk this clock.
Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon in a thrilling AFC wildcard game. Chiefs would play the Steelers next week with a win. Colts would visit the Raiders next week with a win. Manning with time. Manning going deep into the end zone for Harrison. Touchdown Colts. Marvin Harrison, another big play, and the Colts are back in front.
This is like if you've ever played the game where you have to throw the ball and there's a bunch of guys at the end of a field or a court, and it's like you have to catch 3 passes and everyone's just going for the ball. That's just one of those situations where it's like, oh, close your eyes and toss it up and let's see who catches it.
Peyton Manning with 392 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Marvin Harrison's a big reason why for that production. One of the best wideouts in NFL history, just went up and got that one.
Like, how do you cover that? Maybe you turn around, but that's just as perfect of coverage as you can get.
Tyreek Hill already with 1 big kick return of 63 yards. That one just 22. And the tackle from John Dutton. Patrick Mahomes, you can ask the Texans how good he is in this sort of situation. You can ask the Bills as well. You can ask almost every team in the AFC. Given this situation, almost impossible to beat. Mahomes gets rid of it to Kelsey. Milt Davis brings him down in a gain of 5.
And it's just, he's so opportune. It's just, he takes control of every opportunity he can.
Fresh off the Madden glitch, Mahomes runs it for a first down. And with a minute left in the game, here comes Patrick Mahomes, 3rd play of this drive. In cut, he completes the pass to Taylor. We've got a timeout on the field and another injury for the Colts. Already Bob Sanders and Ted Hendricks have suffered season-ending injuries in this game, and now they're down another player in that secondary. First down to the 45. Mahomes is looking, unloads the bow who dropped the football.
That was a running play, so obviously Madden didn't want you to see how great it was.
Boy, that was the strangest glitch ever. Meanwhile, Mahomes still keeps on chugging down the field. This Chiefs franchise, 40 All-Pro players, 13 Hall of Famers, and a total of 4 Super Bowls. A great franchise, but they're down to this in the wild card round. Chiefs, 2 for 9 on 3rd down tonight.
At least get close.
And that looks like it's exactly what they'll do. Kelsey the catch. The Chiefs this season are 0 for 5 on 4th down this year. And here's the first conversion of the season. Chris Burford moves the chains.
At some point, you're gonna have to spike it. Might leave that timeout in your back pocket. But this is an instance in a situation where maybe Mahomes tries to get about 20 yards and then starts catapulting it into the end zone.
Well, not quite yet. Mahomes is looking short, guns it to the sideline for Bo. He's got it, and that should stop the clock with 17 seconds. It is a reception from Dwayne Bowe, and indeed, the Chiefs have another play in the end zone here.
Yeah, and they have a timeout in their back pocket. They got 17 seconds. This is good real estate for Mahomes.
Mahomes throws into the end zone, intercepted by Boyd, and the Colts are going to win the game.
It's a prayer that Patrick Mahomes threw right there. You know, maybe they have a timeout, they could get about 10 yards, but instead go straight for the end zone, and they just didn't have an open receiver.
Considering all the dropped interceptions, I'm sure Mahomes is kicking himself. That's the one that gets caught. And Bobby Boyd, fabulous cornerback, 57 interceptions in his career, and makes the play to seal it. Manning played well too, and it's the Colts who prevail. They'll visit the Raiders in Oakland for the AFC divisional round next week. For our outstanding broadcast crew, Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon, and Danny DeBock, a great football game here to begin the playoffs. All-time Chiefs are going home after a heartbreak in Indianapolis. Make sure to join us for the rest of our playoff coverage this week. Highlights and the extra point with the injury reports this weekend. It should be a great road to the all-time roster title, and the Colts are one step closer with a win of the wild card over the Chiefs, 24-17. This is the all-time rosters franchise, the Charge 295.